Have you ever caught a glimpse of yourself, just a fleeting reflection in a shop window, or maybe the faintest trace of your own scent in the air, and paused, almost startled, thinking, wait, was that really me? It's subtle, a shadow of a feeling, that faint, almost invisible trace in the air that no one else might notice but you do. You step into the shower, you wash carefully, you wear fresh clothes, you do everything right, and yet, something feels off. And in that quiet moment, you wonder if you're imagining things. But here's the truth, you're not, and you're certainly not alone. For countless women, over 60, the body begins to whisper in new ways, softer, quieter than before. It's not the obvious changes people usually talk about. Instead, it's small, almost secret shifts. The way your skin feels, the way your hormones fluctuate, the way your daily routine no longer gives the same results it once did. And sometimes, those changes show up not in how you look, but in how you smell. Now, before you think this is about being dirty, let me stop you right there. This isn't about hygiene. It's about biology, about evolution, about understanding your body as it changes. In fact, sometimes the very habits we believe are helping us, the routines we've carried faithfully for decades, quietly working against us, making the problem worse without us realizing it. And that's why I made this video, because no one talks about this. We talk about wrinkles. We talk about gray hair. We talk about memory and joints and bone health. But the quiet shift in how our body smells, that's left in silence, wrapped in embarrassment, when it deserves compassion, wisdom, and real solutions. So today, I'm going to uncover 8 surprising bathroom habits that may be aging your scent, not your spirit. And even more importantly, I'll share gentle, doctor-backed solutions that can help you feel fresh, clean, and deeply comfortable in your skin again. And here's my promise. This isn't about covering up or hiding. You don't need to drown yourself in perfume. You don't need to spend a fortune on fancy creams. You don't need to scrub until your skin is raw. What you need is simple knowledge. Small science-backed shifts that make a big difference. If you've ever wondered about this even once, drop the number 1 in the comments, just so I know I'm speaking to the right woman. And if you'd like more trustworthy, practical wisdom like this, make sure to hit subscribe and tap the bell, so you'll never miss the tips that matter most, and stay with me until the end, because I'll be sharing one small but powerful shift that could completely transform how you feel about your body, not just today, but for years to come. Let me introduce you to Eleanor. At 65, Eleanor believed she had fully settled into her skin. She had raised her children, weathered heartbreaks, stood strong through countless winters, and carried her wisdom like a crown she had earned. She was steady, grounded, at peace with herself, or so she thought. One warm afternoon, she bent down to help her granddaughter tie her shoes. And in that innocent moment, her granddaughter looked up with clear eyes and asked, "Grandma, why do you smell like the attic?" Eleanor laughed, brushed it off. Children say things, after all. But that night, standing alone in her bathroom, she paused. She sniffed her shirt, her towel, her own arm, and a quiet thought crept in. Is this what getting older smells like? That's the part no one warns us about. We hear about thinning hair, about fine lines, about the way our joints ache when the weather changes. But the subtle changes in scent, they rarely make it into conversation. Maybe it feels too delicate, too personal, too embarrassing, but it's real. And it matters because it can affect not just how others perceive us, but how we perceive ourselves. Here's what's happening. As we age, our skin becomes thinner and more fragile. That means it holds on to bacteria differently, giving scents more chance to linger. Hormone levels drop, especially after menopause, changing how our sweat glands behave and how our bodies process natural oils. Even the skin's natural exfoliation slows down, so dead cells don't shed as quickly, silently building up, especially in areas we rarely think to pay attention to. But listen closely. This is not about being broken. It's not about being unclean. It's about being different. Your body is not failing you. It's evolving. And that evolution doesn't demand shame. It asks only for understanding. You don't need to hide behind sprays and scented powders. You don't need to overscrub or feel embarrassed. You only need to know which habits are secretly working against you and how to adjust them. Gently, kindly, with care. And that's where we're headed next. In just a moment, we'll walk through the 8 most common bathroom habits that might be making odor worse without you even realizing it. And alongside each one, I'll show you simple, science-backed ways to shift those habits so that you can feel lighter, fresher, and more at ease in your own skin. Again, so, if you've ever caught yourself wondering why you feel just a little off, or if someone you love has made an innocent comment that stuck with you longer than you'd like, hear this. You are not alone, and you don't have to accept discomfort as a natural part of aging. Stay with me. This journey may begin with a conversation about scent, but what it's really about is reclaiming the comfort, confidence, and ease of living in your own skin. Single day. Meet Ruth. Ruth was raised on the belief that cleanliness was next to godliness. Her mother taught her early. A clean home meant respect, and that same philosophy extended to her body. So, when Ruth entered her 60s and noticed changes, drier skin, subtle shifts in her natural scent, she did what felt logical. She scrubbed harder. She added more soap, lavender body wash in the morning, powder in the afternoon, feminine, wipes in her purse, just in case. Despite all her careful routines, lavender body wash in the morning, powder in the afternoon, feminine wipes tucked neatly in her purse, just in case, Ruth began to notice something she couldn't ignore. A faint irritation, a strange dryness, and sometimes, a lingering odor she couldn't explain. It was subtle, but it unsettled her. She would step out of the shower feeling spotless, only to notice within hours that something felt off. At first, she told herself it was just age. Maybe this is what happens, she thought quietly, trying to dismiss the discomfort. But deep down, it bothered her. How could she be doing everything right and still not feel fresh? So Ruth did something brave, something many women shy away from. She brought it up with her doctor. And what she learned that day changed everything. Ruth, her doctor said gently, your body is trying to protect you. But the products you're using are stripping away what it needs most. Those words sank in all her life. Ruth thought more cleaning meant better care. But the truth was the opposite. You see, the skin in our intimate areas is more delicate than anywhere else on the body. It's thin, highly sensitive, and carefully designed by nature to protect itself. And deep inside, the body already has its own intelligent cleansing system. The vagina has a natural rhythm, a balance of healthy bacteria and pH that keeps everything in harmony without us needing to interfere. It doesn't need our heavy-handed help. It needs our respect. When we overwash with soaps, perfumes, or even products labeled gentle or specially for women, we unknowingly disrupt that balance. We strip away the very bacteria that are guarding our health, and the result? We create an open door for irritation, infections, and yes, odor. Ruth said in stunned silence. All those years, she believed she was being extra careful. In reality, she had been working against her own body's wisdom. That realization shifted everything. Now Ruth's routine is simpler. Warm water, a fragrance-free, mild cleanser when truly necessary. Nothing inside, nothing harsh. Just kindness. And, for the first time in years, she feels genuinely fresh, not because she's masking something, but because she's trusting her body again. Sometimes, doing less is the most loving thing we can do. Helen always considered herself practical, raised in a household where nothing was wasted. She learned early that every item in the home had a purpose and should be used wisely. So when it came to her bath towel, her habits seemed perfectly reasonable. Hang it back up, reuse it for the week. After all, as she often joked with a smile, I only use it when I'm clean. How dirty can a towel really get? But as the years went on, Helen began to notice small, puzzling changes. Even after a long hot shower, her skin didn't feel as refreshed as it used to. A faint musty smell clung to her, one she couldn't quite shake. And her arms, once smooth, had started to develop small patches of dryness and irritation. At first she chalked it up to age. I'm just getting older, she thought with a sigh. But somewhere deep down she felt something wasn't quite right. The turning point came when her daughter visited. While walking past the bathroom, she casually mentioned, Mom, it smells a little damp in here. Helen laughed it off at the time, but that night, curiosity got the better of her. She picked up her towel, held it close, and took a deep breath. There, it was not overwhelming, but unmistakable, a faint stale odor she had simply grown used to. And with that realization, a thought struck her. Could this be the reason I don't feel as fresh anymore? So she did what any sensible woman would do. She looked it up. What she discovered was surprising. Bath towels, especially in humid bathrooms, can stay damp for hours after use. That lingering moisture becomes the perfect breeding ground for bacteria, mildew, and even mold. And every time we rub those towels across our clean skin, we may be transferring those microbes right back onto ourselves. The very thing Helen trusted to keep her clean was quietly undoing her efforts. From then on, Helen changed her approach. She began rotating between 3 towels, washing each one after every 2 or 3 uses. She made sure to hang them wide open on a rack, never crumpled on a hook, and she left the bathroom fan running a little longer to help them dry completely. Difference was almost immediate. Her skin felt better, the air smelled fresher, and that subtle unease she once carried, gone. I never realized something so small could make such a big difference, Helen admitted later. And isn't that true of so much in life? Sometimes the smallest adjustments bring the greatest relief. Dorothy had always taken pride in how she presented herself. Her hair softly curled, her blouse perfectly pressed, a hint of rosewater behind her ears. She believed in showing up polished, no matter the occasion. But there was one part of her body she rarely gave much thought to: her feet. They're not on display, she used to joke. No one's looking down there. And for years, that attitude seemed to work. Until it did, and single quotes it started subtly. A sour smell in her shoes, even on days she hadn't been particularly active. Then came the dry, flaky skin around her heels. Finally, the itch, a quiet but persistent itch between her toes that kept her awake at night. At first, Dorothy thought it was simple dryness. She tried lotion, she changed her socks, she switched shoes. But nothing worked. In fact, the problem only grew worse. Frustrated, she eventually visited her pet. After a careful exam, he looked up at her kindly and said, "You're doing everything right, except the one thing that matters most. You're ignoring your feet. As we age, our skin changes. It doesn't shed dead cells as easily as it once did, and our feet, trapped in socks and shoes all day, become the perfect environment for sweat, bacteria, and fungi to thrive. Left unchecked, that neglect can turn into odor, irritation, and infections that rob us of comfort and peace of mind. Sweat, bacteria, and odor are closely linked. Those dead skin cells that we so easily overlook, they don't simply disappear. They collect, especially in warm, moist places like the spaces between our toes, creating the perfect breeding ground for fungus, irritation, and unpleasant smells. Dorothy was stunned. She had been so careful about everything else, her hair, her clothes, her posture, even the way she spoke. Why hadn't anyone ever told her that feet needed their own special kind of care? That day, she made herself a quiet promise. She would no longer treat her feet as an afterthought. From then on, every shower included at least 1 full minute of attention just for them. She gently scrubbed with a soft cloth and mild soap, making sure to wash carefully between each toe. Once a week, she reached for her pumice stone, buffing away the buildup on her heels until her skin felt smooth again. And perhaps the most important change of all, she always dried her feet thoroughly. No shortcuts, no rushing. On warmer days, or whenever she wore closed shoes, Dorothy sprinkled a light antifungal foot powder to keep things fresh and dry. It became her little ritual, one that left her feeling cared for in a way she hadn't realized she was missing. The results? No more itching, no more odor, and best of all, a renewed sense of confidence. I didn't just clean my feet, Dorothy laughs now. I started listening to them, and sometimes, that's all our body really wants. Marge had always prided herself on her spotless home. Her bathroom sparkled, the mirrors gleamed, and a lavender air freshener stood neatly on the shelf. She even changed her hand towels every other day. To anyone who visited, was the picture of TIDINESS. So when a neighbor casually mentioned something called a toilet plume, Marge laughed. The name itself sounded ridiculous. She imagined a cartoon toilet puffing out little clouds of smoke and shook her head. Surely, it wasn't real. But curiosity got the best of her that evening. She decided to look it up. What she discovered made her skin crawl. Every time we flush a toilet with the lid up, tiny invisible droplets filled with bacteria and particles from the bowl are launched into the air like a microscopic geyser. These droplets can travel up to 6 feet, floating silently before settling onto surfaces throughout the bathroom, the sink, the towels, the hairbrush, even the toothbrush. Marge suddenly thought of all the mornings she had brushed her teeth while flushing, or the times her fresh towels were hanging neatly nearby. The thought of those invisible particles drifting onto her clean face, onto her soap dish, onto her toothbrush, it made her stomach turn. The irony struck her hard. Her bathroom looked clean, even smelled clean, and yet she might have been spreading germs without realizing it. From that day forward, she made one simple change. She closed the lid every single time before flushing. It became second nature, as natural as washing her hands or turning off the light. And she noticed something else, too. That faint, lingering odor she sometimes picked up after guests had used the bathroom. Gone. The difference wasn't dramatic, but it was real. Her bathroom smelled fresher, felt safer, and gave her peace of mind that when her granddaughter came to stay for the weekend, Marge passed along her new rule of the house with a smile. Close the lid before you flush always, because sometimes staying healthy doesn't require expensive products or harsh chemicals. Sometimes, it's as simple as knowledge and one small shift in habit. It's the cleanest bathroom I've ever had, Marge says now with a wink, and I barely had to lift a finger. Evelyn loved her evenings. A cup of chamomile tea in hand, wrapped in her favorite robe, its fabric soft from years of use. A few minutes with a good book before drifting into restful sleep. It was her ritual, simple, familiar, comforting. So when her doctor gently suggested she start changing her underwear before bed, Evelyn blinked in surprise. But I haven't been doing anything all day, she explained. No walks, no yard work, I've just been home. Her underwear still felt clean. She hadn't sweated. She hadn't strained herself. Why should she bother changing? What Evelyn didn't realize, and what so many women don't, is that even the quietest days leave behind more than we imagine. Throughout the day, our bodies naturally release sweat, oils, and shed skin cells. Add to that a touch of moisture, and you've created a warm, enclosed environment where bacteria can quietly thrive. And when we wear the same underwear to bed, that mix stays pressed against the skin for hours. Especially as we age, when skin becomes thinner and more sensitive, this constant contact can lead to irritation, unpleasant odors, and even infections like yeast or bacterial imbalances. After discovering how something as simple as breathable sleepwear could transform Evelyn's nights, another hidden detail came to light: imbalances she had never once considered. At first, she thought slipping into pajamas was enough, but now, she began to see things differently. That very evening, she reached for a fresh pair of cotton underwear, soft, simple, and dry. For the first time in what felt like ages, she crawled into bed and noticed a new kind of freshness, of comfort she hadn't realized she was missing. After a few nights, Evelyn grew curious and decided to experiment further. She tried sleeping without underwear altogether, wearing only her loose nightgown. To her surprise, she woke up more comfortable, less sweaty, and with no lingering odor. It was such a small change, yet it felt profound. Laughing one morning, she admitted to a friend, "The less I wore, the better I felt." Now Evelyn keeps a small stack of bedtime-only undergarments, light, breathable, and clean. It's a tiny ritual, almost invisible to anyone but her, yet it made a world of difference, because taking care of yourself isn't always about adding more layers or routines. Sometimes, it's about letting your body breathe. And when you do, sleep comes easier, and every morning feels like a true fresh start, not only for your skin, but for your spirit as well. Joanne always believed her bathroom was spotless. The counters sparkled, the mirror stayed streak-free, and the floor was swept clear of dust. A small potted plant stood cheerfully by the window, and a lavender diffuser released a calming scent near the sink. Everything appeared in its place, everything under control, but every so often, she would catch a faint whiff of something unpleasant, lingering, almost sour. She checked the sink, the drains, even the bath mat. Still, the smell returned. It was never strong enough to embarrass her when guests visited, but it was enough to nag at her, to make her pause and wonder, where on earth is that coming from? The answer was hiding in plain sight, the bathroom trash bin, sitting quietly next to the toilet. Her small lidded bin looked innocent. It wasn't overflowing, it wasn't visibly dirty. Yet that was exactly where the problem lay. Inside were used tissues, damp cotton pads, and sanitary products. Even when carefully wrapped, they released tiny amounts of moisture and organic matter into the air, and with the lid shut, the bin became a dark, humid, warm pocket, the perfect breeding ground for bacteria and mold. Slowly, invisibly, they spread until that subtle odor began to creep into the room. Joanne had spent years polishing every surface, only to overlook the one item quietly undoing her efforts. So she created a new habit. Every couple of days, she empties the bin whether it's full or not. Once a week, she gives it a proper cleaning with vinegar spray or a simple mix of baking soda and warm water. Sometimes she drops in a cotton ball soaked with essential oil at the bottom. Just for a touch of freshness. It takes less than 5 minutes, but the change is undeniable. The air feels lighter, the bathroom itself feels fresher, and that faint, frustrating smell gone. Smiling, Joanne says, "I thought the bin was too small to matter. Turns out it was loud in its own quiet way." A reminder that sometimes the most overlooked corners are the ones that need us most. Linda adored her bathrobe, soft, warm, and perfectly broken in. It was her comfort after every shower. She had owned it for years, and to her it felt like an old friend, familiar, loyal, always waiting. Because of that, she rarely thought about how often she washed it. "I only wear it when I'm clean," she told herself. "I just stepped out of the shower. How dirty could it be?" But over time, she began noticing something unsettling. Even after a fresh shower, there were mornings when she didn't feel quite clean. A faint musty scent clung to her skin, especially around her neck and arms. It wasn't the smell of soap, it wasn't the smell of her. Then one day, while folding laundry, she lifted her robe and caught a whiff that made her heart sink. Subtle, yes, but unmistakable. Her beloved robe smelled like the back of an old closet. What Linda hadn't realized was simple. Even clean bodies leave behind moisture, oils, and skin cells. Wrapping a damp robe around herself after every shower meant that all of that soaked into the fabric. If left bunched on a hook or hung in a poorly ventilated bathroom, the dampness created the perfect breeding ground for bacteria, mildew, and odor. The very thing meant to make her feel fresh was silently taking that feeling away. So Linda made one small but important change. She bought a second robe just as soft, just as cozy, and began rotating them. Now, she washes each one every 7 days without fail. She hangs them on a wide rack near the window, letting them air out fully. On sunny days, she even lets them dry outside, just like her grandmother once did. The result? Her skin feels cleaner, her mornings fresher, and the comfort of her robe is truly what it was always meant to be, a gift of warmth, not a hidden source of musty weight. It's funny how just like Linda realized that true comfort means letting go of what no longer serves us, Barbara's story shows us another quiet truth about everyday care. For years, Barbara believed she was doing everything right. A quick shave under the arms, a swipe of deodorant, and she was ready to go. Clean, simple, or so she thought. But recently, something felt off. Even on mornings when she shaved and wore fresh clothes, there was still a faint odor, subtle yet stubborn, that clung no matter what she tried. She switched deodorant brands, experimented with stronger formulas, even skipped onions at lunch, hoping it might help. Nothing worked. Frustrated, she finally mentioned it to her doctor during a routine visit. He listened, smiled kindly, and said something that changed everything. "You're doing the first step, but missing the second." Barbara was puzzled. She had always assumed shaving was enough. After all, no hair meant less smell, right? But what she didn't realize was that shaving does more than remove hair. It scrapes away dead skin, leftover deodorant, and even bacteria that naturally live on the surface of the underarms. Imagine stirring up the sediment at the bottom of a pond if you don't rinse it away. All that debris just lingers in freshly opened pores. And that's exactly what had been happening. The fix. Surprisingly simple. No expensive products, no complicated routine, just mindfulness. Now, every time Barbara shaves, she takes an extra minute. She rinses her underarms carefully with warm water, then uses a soft, clean washcloth to gently wipe the area. No scrubbing, no harshness, just a light, thoughtful cleanse. Afterward, she pats the skin dry with a clean towel and gives it a moment to breathe before applying anything else. During that pause, she might brush her hair or moisturize her face, giving her skin the short break it needs. And the difference? Immediate. No more mysterious odor, no more hidden discomfort. Just that clean, confident freshness that carries her through the day. I always thought shaving was enough, Barbara reflects, but now I know finishing the job makes all the difference. Sometimes it isn't about doing more. It's about completing what you've already started, with a little care. If even one of these reminders today made you feel seen, would you let me know by commenting the number 1 below? It's a gentle way of saying, I'm here, and I'm taking care of myself too. Your presence means more than you realize, because together, we're shaping a space where aging feels softer, kinder, and far more empowering. And when you think about it, none of these habits seem like a big deal at first. A towel used one more time, a robe that still feels soft, even if it hasn't been washed, sleeping in the same underwear, leaving the lid up, skipping the extra rinse after a shave. These are small things, quiet routines, choices we make almost without noticing because no one ever told us otherwise. But here's the truth. As we grow older, those small things begin to matter more than ever. They build the foundation of how we feel each day. They shape our comfort, our confidence, even the way we carry ourselves into a room. And often, when something feels a little off, we're quick to blame age, thinking, maybe this is just what happens now. But that isn't the full story. Aging is not the end of freshness, or dignity, or beauty. It's a new chapter 1 that asks for gentler care, deeper awareness, and a softer kind of kindness toward ourselves. And here's the beautiful part. Every habit we talked about today is easy to adjust. They don't cost much. They don't demand fancy tools or perfect routines, only a little shift, a little thought, a little love. And what do you gain in return? Something priceless. You feel more at ease in your own body. You breathe lighter. In your own skin, you walk a little taller. Because when your body feels cared for, your spirit naturally follows. And that, dear friend, is where true confidence begins. So here's to the little things done with wisdom, intention, and heart. You've earned it. If one of these small shifts made you smile, pause, or feel understood, comment 1 below. It's a simple way of saying, yes, this spoke to me. And if you have a dear friend, sister, or neighbor who could use this reminder, consider sharing it, because sometimes, the smallest changes are the ones that lift us the highest. And if you know a dear friend, a sister, or even a neighbor who could use a quiet lift of confidence, consider sharing this video with her. Sometimes it's not the grand gestures, but the smallest changes that can brighten someone's entire day, making life feel just a little lighter, a little kinder. If you'd like to keep discovering more ways to care for your body with gentleness, and to step into each new stage of life with grace, I warmly invite you to subscribe to this channel. Here, we share simple, trustworthy tips created especially for women like you, because feeling fresh, strong, and deeply confident is not something left behind with age. It's something you continue to grow into, day by day, choice by choice. Thank you, truly, for spending this time with me. Remember, you are not alone on this path, and you are already doing beautifully. Every small step of care is a reminder that you deserve to feel good in your skin, and I'm honored to walk alongside you.